Hey everyone, tonight we're doing something a little different. You're not falling asleep to the story of a battle, or the invention of the wheel, or the fall of a king. Nope. Tonight you're going to bed in an Aztec kitchen. The year is, well, let's just say it's somewhere between the 14th and 16th century. Outside Lake Texcoco glistens under a rising sun, and inside your world is about to smell like burnt corn and roasted ants. Welcome to the dawn of your culinary apprenticeship. The air is thick with wood smoke. You blink and rub your eyes, but it doesn't help the smoke is coming from all directions. A low fire crackles beneath a flat clay griddle called a comal, already sizzling with something you hope is edible. The woman running this kitchen, the Tlacualchiuqui, gives you a look. She's been awake for hours. You're late. You shuffle to your spot feet, brushing against packed earth, the floor cool and gritty under your soles. No shoes, no apron, no cutting board. Just you, your hands, and a mortar and pestle made of volcanic rock. You glance around the dimly lit room. No forks, no knives, no metal pots. In fact, there's no metal at all. The Aztecs skipped that part. They leapt right from stone tools to world-class empire without inventing cookware. Instead of pans, they use metates, stone slabs for grinding, and molcajetes, bowls made of lava rock for crushing. You heft one. It's heavy enough to double as a murder weapon, which, to be honest, it probably has at some point. You drop a handful of dried chilies in and start pounding. The smell explodes instantly hot smoky, a bit sweet and extremely alarming to your untrained nostrils. Now imagine this, you're trying to cook an entire meal without steel gas or a fridge. You don't even have matches. Fire must be coaxed from smoldering coals, saved from the night before rekindled with twisted reeds and bits of dry bark. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you end up just blowing and praying. This morning it worked barely, and now the fire licks the base of a comal where tortillas are in various stages of failure. You reach for one, thinking maybe you'll flip it. A hand slaps yours away. No toques, so the cook hisses, "Don't touch that. You weren't invited to touch the tortillas." That's fair. You've never made one. You wouldn't even know how. They're deceptively simple, just mesa water and heat. But the texture of the dough, the pressure of the fingers, the timing on the fire, these are secrets passed down through muscle memory. You meanwhile are still wondering if it's okay to sneeze into your sleeve or if that'll be seen as bad manners. You are handed your task, husking tamarind pods. You sit cross-legged, working quickly. The pods are sticky and resistant, and one of them smacks you in the face when it breaks open. Someone giggles. You look up to see a child balancing a bowl of amaranth and laughing at your expense. The moment is brief. The kitchen demands attention. Every moment of distraction could mean burning something precious, and in this world, food is labor. Food is survival. Food is power. You're beginning to realize just how brutal daily cooking is in the Aztec Empire. Nothing is automated. Nothing is easy. Every ingredient must be grown, picked, cleaned, processed, and then cooked from scratch. Your arms already ache from grinding corn that was soaked overnight in lime water, a process that removes the husk and makes the nutrients more bioavailable. The Aztecs figured this out without knowing what niacin was. They just knew it kept them alive. You're handed a gourd full of water. It's room temperature and tastes faintly of smoke. The water came from a ceramic jug carried from a neighborhood well and filtered through sand. You're warned not to drink too much. It's a cooking kitchen, not a luxury spa. Hydration comes later, after you earn it. You notice the walls are darkened by soot. Above your head, bundles of herbs and dried fish hang from rafters. A clay figure of a maize god sits in the corner smeared with red pigment, and occasionally offered a pinch of dough or a whisper of incense. You're told not to look at it too long. The gods don't like staring. Someone behind you coughs loud, dry, persistent. You realize you've been doing it too. The smoke is relentless. There is no chimney. There is no ventilation. Your eyes sting, your throat feels like sandpaper, And yet this is every day for most people in the empire. The fancy temples and pyramids might get all the glory, but the real engine of Aztec civilization is here in the kitchens, in the courtyards, in the back rooms, where women work from dawn to dusk to make something edible out of firestone and effort. You've been here less than an hour, and you're already considering giving up. But then, someone slides you a tiny cup. Inside is a thick, dark liquid. Chocolate. You perk up, finally a reward. You sip, and immediately regret everything. It's bitter, like dirt mixed with anger bitter. It's spiced with chili, thickened with maize, and absolutely nothing like Swiss Miss. This was not made for comfort. It was made for energy, for ceremony, for shock value. You nod politely and hide your grimace. Around you, the kitchen is settling into its rhythm. Tortillas are stacking. Beans are boiling in clay pots suspended over coals. A slab of roasted squash is being slathered in honey and crushed seeds. You catch a glimpse of a bowl full of something that looks suspiciously like larvae. You pretend not to notice. You're beginning to understand something important. The Aztecs didn't see food as an afterthought or a side quest. Cooking was the main event. It was sacred, social, physical, and deeply tied to identity. What you ate told people where you were from, what class you belonged to, and which gods you worshipped. And if you were lucky enough to eat well, you'd better thank the person who made it happen. You look down at your hands. They're covered in corn flour and chili oil. You smell like smoke and sweat. Your back aches, but somewhere deep down you feel awake. Like you've just been given a glimpse into a world where even boiling beans is a daily victory. And you haven't even seen the grasshoppers yet. You wake up sore. You didn't even know your shoulder blades had individual feelings, but now they each seem to have filed a complaint. The grinding stone from yesterday, the matata, left your arms numb and your fingers bruised. Your back feels like it lost a wrestling match with a jaguar. And yet it's still not the hardest part of cooking like an Aztec. Because today, you realize you don't even have tools. You stare blankly at the empty workspace. There are no frying pans, no ladles, no knives, no measuring cups, no kitchen timer singing a cheery tune. Your version of mise en place is a basket of raw ingredients and the vague hope that someone else knows what they're doing. You reach for a shard of obsidian, a thin, sharp piece of volcanic glass used for slicing. It's beautiful, black, shiny, and lethal. You cut into a ripe tomato-like fruit called tomato and immediately nick your thumb. No Band-Aids either. You suck the cut and pretend it didn't happen like a proper prehistoric chef. Someone hands you a handful of dried maize kernels and points toward the fire pit. The instruction is simple: toast them until they pop. You assume this will be easy. You assume wrong. The kernels go into a wide clay pan heated over open flame. There's no handle. You shift it around with a piece of split wood, trying not to tip anything into the fire. The kernels begin to swell, hiss, and one explodes directly into your face like an angry popcorn grenade. You yelp. A woman nearby snorts. Apparently that means they're just right. There's a reason the Aztecs didn't need metal. They had muscle. Every task required control, finesse, and frankly, pain tolerance. They roasted chilies until the air burned to breathe. They lifted stone cooking slabs like they were nothing, and they managed fine with just clay wood and obsidian. Clay was everywhere. Pots, plates, bowls, jugs, ladles, all handmade, sun-dried, or fired in open pits. And fragile, very, very fragile. You've already broken 2 and been silently judged each time. The good news is clay is cheap. The bad news, someone still has to make more. By hand. You wander toward the area where pottery is made. A girl no older than 10 is shaping a pot by coiling thin rolls of clay upward in slow spirals. Her fingers are methodical, her face calm. You try to copy her. Your pot looks like it fell from the sky and landed badly. She doesn't laugh. She just takes it from you, smashes it, and starts over. Brutal, efficient. Next you learn about baskets woven from reeds, agave fibers, and palm leaves. They're used for carrying corn, for steaming tamales, for drying herbs. You're handed one filled with small green fruits. "Crush them," says the cook. You grab a rock and smash. The juice goes everywhere. Everyone groans. You forgot to do it over a bowl. Again, you're starting to sense a pattern. Everything is improvised. Or maybe it's just that your brain is still stuck in 2025 waiting for something to beep or flash. But the Aztec kitchen is silent aside from fire and voices. No clocks, no timers, just rhythm intuition and the occasional scolding glance. Lunch prep is underway. You're making salsa with roasted tomato chili and a handful of garlic cloves that were blackened directly on the coals. The molcajete lava rock mortar is back in your hands. You pound. It feels personal this time. The salsa smells incredible, sharp, smoky, tangy. You sneak a taste. Mistake. Your entire mouth is on fire. It's not spicy in the way you know it, it's aggressive. Deep heat that climbs into your sinuses and sets up a drum circle. You reach for water and are handed a wooden cup of atole instead, a warm drink made from corn water and a little cacao. It's thick, bland, and comforting, a strange hug in a bowl. You survive. The kitchen is now a battlefield of clay shards, corn husks, and steaming vessels. You're on tamal duty again. This time you get it right or close enough. Corn dough wrapped in banana leaves or corn husks with a little spicy filling in the middle. Into the steamer they go balanced precariously over hot stones and water in a clay pot. No pressure cooker, just steam and patience. Don't lift the lid, someone warns. You do. The steam hits your face like betrayal. You retreat scalded and ashamed. Lesson learned. Meanwhile, your host family prepares tlacatlaoli, a kind of cornmeal soup made with beans, herbs, and maybe, just maybe, a dash of squirrel. You didn't ask. You don't want to know. You sip and pretend it's lentils. You glance toward the doorway. Outside, a man is hauling water in large ceramic vessels called amphorae. Each weighs close to 50 pounds. He moves with the ease of someone who's done this every day since childhood. You offer to help. You regret it immediately. Your knees pop. Your elbows scream. You make it 10 steps before nearly dropping the entire pot. "No mas," you whisper. The man chuckles. "City folk," he says in a language you barely recognize. You slump back inside and sit near the hearth. Smoke curls lazily toward the roof. Someone hands you a flat roasted cactus paddle. It's called nopali. Slimy, charred, covered in salt and lime. You take a bite. It tastes like green beans and vinegar and rubber glove. You chew politely. Later you're shown the storage area. Baskets of dried chilies in every shape and hue. Ropes of garlic. Clay pots full of seeds, grains, and insect pastes. A basket of red powder annatto. You sniff it and sneeze. Your eyes water. Another basket is full of small dried frogs. You're told not to ask. And here's the kicker. None of this is weird. Not to them. Every item has a use. Every texture is familiar. Every taste has meaning. You're the outsider fumbling with your broken obsidian knife, trying to learn a language of food spoken in muscle memory and fire. Historians still debate whether Aztec kitchens were matriarchal power centers or communal spaces of shared labor. Someone murmurs behind you, stirring beans. You're too tired to ask who that was. Your second day in the Aztec kitchen ends with a kind of earned defeat. Your hands are calloused, your shirt smells like roasted squash, and your knees may never recover. But you made salsa. You didn't cry, at least not in front of anyone. And you didn't drop the water pot. That's progress. You wake up to the sound of something being crushed. Not loudly. Not violently. Just rhythmically. Like two stones kissing over and over again. It's the woman from the kitchen, already up before dawn, already grinding something by torchlight. You shuffle into the courtyard, rubbing your eyes and immediately regretting it. Your fingers are still coated in chili oil from yesterday. This morning it's time to face what might be the most misunderstood food in Aztec history: chocolate. Or rather, xocolotl. You think of hot cocoa. Creamy, sweet, soothing. Maybe a dusting of cinnamon on top. What you're about to drink, however, is the brutal older sibling of that modern confection. It's dark, it's bitter, it's angry, and it's about to be your breakfast. The cacao beans have already been roasted over the fire and peeled, leaving behind oily, fragrant nibs that smell faintly of burnt almonds and mud. You help grind them into a thick, pasty mass. This takes time. It's sticky, stubborn work. You sweat, you grunt, someone laughs. Más fuerte, they say, put your back into it. You do and nearly lose your balance when the stone shifts. Finally, the paste is mixed with water and wait for it chili powder. Not sugar, not milk. Chili. A pinch of cornmeal is added for texture. Then a few drops of fermented agave sap for funk. The result? A lukewarm slurry that smells like smoke pepper and something your brain can't categorize. You're handed a cup. You sip. It punches your tongue like it owes it money. The bitterness is so intense your lips pucker involuntarily. There's a graininess, a sharp tang from the chili, and a strange nutty undertone that lingers. You swallow. It burns slightly going down. You nod like it's fine. It's not fine. But here's the thing. This drink isn't supposed to comfort you. It's meant to energize you, stimulate you, prepare you for war if necessary. This is not cozy cafe fare. This is battle juice. Chocolate in the Aztec world was sacred. It was a royal drink, a warrior's fuel, a priest's offering. The word zocolotl literally means bitter water. It was often frothed vigorously with a wooden whisk to produce a thick foam, which was considered the best part. You try to froth your drink. You splash half of it on your tunic. The cook sighs. Historians still debate whether cacao was used more often ceremonially or as a daily drink for the upper class. Someone remarks casually, "You're not sure if they're quoting a textbook or just showing off." Either way, your mouth still tastes like peppered earth. Later, you accompany a young man into the fields. He's gathering cacao pods from a small grove, one of the few in the cooler highland climate where such trees can grow with care. The pods are cut open with stone blades, revealing wet, pale seeds surrounded by white pulp. You suck on one out of curiosity. It's sweet tangy, nothing like chocolate. He nods approvingly. That's the good part before fermentation. The seeds are left to ferment in leaves for days, then sun-dried. The bitterness comes later after roasting. It's strange to think that such a luxurious modern treat began as a sour jungle seed turned bitter through controlled rot and fire. Back at the kitchen, you help clean the drinking vessels. Simple clay cups called sikali, sometimes carved from gourds. No mugs, no handles. Just smooth round shapes meant to cradle warm liquids. One cup has intricate patterns scratched into it. Serpent's maze stalks swirling clouds. You run your finger over the design. Someone tells you it belonged to a priest. You sit quietly as the kitchen prepares for the midday meal. The chocolate drink wasn't the only use for cacao. Ground cacao could also be mixed into sauces mole with ground seeds, chilies, and herbs. You're handed a bowl of such a sauce and told to stir it gently over the fire. The smell is complex, roasted, spicy, earthy, slightly floral. You dip a piece of squash into it and taste. It's confusing. Your tongue isn't sure what's happening. It wants to enjoy it, but also write a letter of protest. You chew anyway. It grows on you. Sort of. One of the women sprinkles cacao powder over roasted sweet potatoes and amaranth. Another adds it to a stew of turkey and wild greens. In every dish, it's not sweet, it's a seasoning like black pepper or thyme. Subtle, supportive, essential. You're beginning to see cacao not as dessert, but as depth. A baseline note in the orchestra of Aztec flavors. You still miss sugar, though. Speaking of which, sugar doesn't exist here. Not as you know it. Cane sugar won't arrive until the Spanish do. For now, sweetness comes from bees' honey maguey sap or the nectar of certain flowers. But those are rare luxuries. Cacao is the king. In the corner of the kitchen, an elderly woman is whispering prayers over a bowl of frothing chocolate. It's an offering, she says, for the rain god Tlaloc. Without rain, there's no cacao, no corn, no life. She tips a portion of the drink into the fire, watching the flames flare and hiss. You watch too respectfully. Later you sit near the fire cup in hand, sipping a second attempt, this time frothed better, slightly milder. Your palate is adjusting. You notice the richness now, the way it coats your throat and warms your chest. You still wouldn't order it at Starbucks, but you get it. You really do. The Aztecs built an empire fueled by corn blood and this bitter drink. They didn't want sweetness. They wanted focus, clarity, fire in the belly and gods in the sky. You look down into your cup. The foam has settled into a little whirlpool. You swirl it gently. It smells like smoke and history. You take another sip. This time it doesn't fight you. The sky is still pale when you're shaken awake. No rooster crows, just the sound of hands clapping rhythmically, slap, 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 as tortillas are formed by firelight. You rub your eyes and try to stretch, but your shoulders protest. There's no time. Today you're going to war. Not real war, but the kind that starts before dawn and lasts until the maize gives in. Welcome to the maize maze. The Aztecs didn't just eat corn. They were made of it literally according to their myths. Humans, they believed, were formed from mesa dough in the gods' celestial kitchen. And now it's your turn to join the cosmic bake-off. Your first task is humble but brutal nixtamalization. You take dried maize kernels, soak them in water mixed with slaked lime calcium hydroxide, and let them sit overnight. This loosens the hulls and unlocks the corn's nutrients. No nixtamalization, no civilization. Just pellagra and despair. You drain the soaked kernels. They're plump now, slightly slick, their skins floating like translucent ghosts. The water smells vaguely like old pennies and damp rock. You rinse and rinse again, then haul them still damp over to the grinding area. The metate is waiting. It doesn't care that you're tired. You kneel, pour a handful of kernels onto the stone, and begin. You press the grinding stone called the mono forward crush pullback press again. The corn resists. It's like wrestling with something that only grows more stubborn the longer you try. You grit your teeth and keep going. Minutes pass, or hours. Who knows? Time has no meaning when your triceps are screaming. A woman beside you hums softly as she grinds. Her pile of masa is smooth, sticky, perfect. Yours looks like someone smashed corn with a rock and gave up halfway. You add water, slowly trying to mimic her texture. She nods at you. That's encouragement, you think. The finished dough is scooped out and rolled into balls, then flattened by hand. You try and it sticks to your fingers. You try again. It tears. A child watching you points and giggles. You pretend it was supposed to be funny. Slap, 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 slap. The rhythm returns. Someone hands you a tortilladora, not the modern kind, just 2 wooden planks for pressing. You line it with leaves, press carefully, and peel back. It's too thick. Try again. Too thin. Try again. Finally, you get one that's acceptable. Onto the comal it goes. The heat rises, the tortilla blisters. You wait for the telltale puff, air filling the middle like a balloon. It doesn't puff. You flip it. Still nothing. The others puff like magic. Yours lays there flat and sullen. You eat it anyway. It's chewy, slightly gritty, tastes like failure. Still, it's food. The midday meal is built around maize in all its forms: tortillas, tamales atole, and a thick, soupy gruel called pozole. You help stir the big pot. The mesa melts into the water, thickening it into something smooth and nourishing. You ladle it into bowls and sip. It tastes earthy, a little sour, comforting in a way you didn't expect. Historians still debate whether the Aztecs preferred white or blue maize for ceremonial use. Someone mutters behind you as they stir their own bowl. You blink at the blue-gray tortilla in your hand. It does look otherworldly, like something made under a moonless sky. Later, you're sent to the storage room, a cool, dry chamber dug partially underground. Baskets of dried corn are stacked neatly color-coded like the world's slowest rainbow. Yellow, red, blue, white, speckled. You run your hand over them. Each has a name. Each has a purpose. Some are better for tamales, some for drinks, some for offerings. You learn that maize isn't just a crop, it's a calendar. Different varieties are planted at different times, harvested for different festivals. One corn might be used to honor the god of rain, another for the goddess of fertility. It's not just food, it's theology. Your host shows you a small shrine carved into the wall just above the storage baskets. A figure made of dough and feathers sits there surrounded by burnt incense and a dried ear of corn. You don't ask questions, you just nod. In the afternoon, you're taught how to make tlaxcali thin, crepe-like tortillas that require a gentler hand. You're not ready. Your first one folds over itself. Your second one tears. Your third sticks to the comal and turns into charcoal. You finally manage one that holds its shape. It's still wrong, but nobody throws it out. Evening comes, and the fire's glow deepens. A woman offers you a drink tejuino, a mildly fermented maize beverage. It's cold, slightly fizzy, sour-sweet. You drink too fast and hiccup. She laughs. "City stomach," she says. By now, you can smell the difference between fresh masa and overworked dough. You can feel the heat of the comal and know when it's too hot. Your fingers instinctively shape the tortillas better. You're still not good, but you're not helpless anymore. You sit under a reed awning, sipping atoll, watching children chase each other with ears of corn. One trips. The others laugh. The sun sets in pink and gold. Smoke curls into the sky like a silent prayer. You close your eyes. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. You wake up to the smell of banana leaves warming over the fire. They crackle slightly as they soften, releasing a sweet, grassy aroma that wraps around the room like a warm blanket. Today, you're making tamales, real tamales, not the kind with store-bought masa and aluminum foil. No, these are Aztec tamales, and they do not forgive error. Your first mistake is assuming this will be like wrapping a sandwich. It's not. It's more like wrapping a pillow made of hope and corn dough in a leaf that wants to collapse at every turn. You're handed a bowl of fresh masa. It's heavier than you expected, soft, pliable, a little sticky. Next to it is a mixture of spicy beans and squash seasoned with episodi and something that smells like basil's angry cousin. A woman shows you how to take just the right amount, spread it onto the leaf, add a spoonful of filling, then fold it into a tight rectangle without anything squishing out the sides. She makes it look effortless. You try. Your first tamal looks like it exploded mid-fold. The mesa has oozed out the side, the leaf ripped. You stare at it in defeat. The woman picks it up gently, smears the filling back in, folds it in one smooth motion, and hands it back to you with a small smile. You nod solemnly. It's like being knighted. Tamales are more than just food. They're a test of patience. Each one is a tiny edible parcel of history, steamed to perfection and served with quiet pride. You learn quickly that they were offered during ceremonies, weddings, even births. In fact, tamales were so important that they were often used in religious offerings. Make a bad one, and you're not just disrespecting the kitchen, you're offending the gods. No pressure. You eventually fold one that stays intact. You want to cheer. Instead, you place it reverently in the large clay steamer like laying down a sacred object. The pot fills slowly, stacked layer by layer with banana leaf bundles. A splash of water goes in the bottom, and then it's covered tightly with more leaves and a clay lid. Now you wait. Waiting is its own job in an Aztec kitchen. You can't just scroll your phone or watch TV. You're still grinding spices, cleaning bowls, stirring sauces. You've been promoted from helpless guest to mildly useful liability. While the tamales steam, you help with side dishes. One involves charring tomatoes and chilies over open flame until their skins blacken and blister. You've learned the hard way to avoid breathing in while doing this, unless you want your lungs to catch fire. You cough anyway. Another dish is made with Quelites wild greens foraged that morning. They're sautéed with a bit of oil and garlic, then seasoned with a pinch of ashes. Yes, ashes. It adds a kind of smoky alkalinity that somehow works. You try it and are surprised it tastes like spinach that spent the night in a fireplace. At some point, a boy walks in with a bowl full of tiny roasted lizards on skewers. You blink. He grins. You back away. The woman next to you laughs, plucks one off the skewer, dips it in sauce, and pops it into her mouth like popcorn. You're not there yet. Finally, the tamales are done. The steamer hisses gently as it's opened. Steam billows out in fragrant clouds. Each bundle is lifted out with care, unwrapped slowly to reveal tender, fluffy mesa around rich, spicy filling. You bite into yours, and it's good. Like really good. Warm, comforting, slightly smoky. The banana leaf gave it a subtle sweetness, and the bean filling has just enough spice to keep you awake. You take another bite, then another. You forget your sore legs and burnt fingers. For one blissful moment, you're just a person eating something delicious in the heart of an empire. Historians still debate whether tamales originated with the Olmecs or later cultures, someone says as they unwrap their own. You nod, pretending you knew that. You didn't. Later, you help prepare dessert tamales. Yes, that's a thing. These are filled with crushed fruit honey and cacao. Some even have edible flowers tucked inside. They smell like perfume and warm sugar. You want to hoard them, but etiquette dictates sharing. Even in this simple act, wrapping dough in a leaf, you see the elegance of Aztec cuisine. It's not flashy, it's not loaded with butter or cream. It's precise, intentional, balanced. You clean up in silence. The pots are scraped, the ashes swept, the banana leaf scraps taken outside to feed animals. Nothing is wasted. That evening, you're invited to join a small family feast. You sit cross-legged with your bowl steam rising in the fading light. Around you, people eat quietly. Children whisper. Dogs sniff the air. The fire crackles. You remember the first tamal you mangled this morning and smile. That was hours ago. And yet it feels like days. You finish your meal, lean back and close your eyes. The sounds of the kitchen swirl around you, spoons scraping clay fire, hissing low, someone humming an old tune. It feels ancient and alive. You sleep with the scent of banana leaves in your hair. You're sent to the corner of the courtyard where an old woman in a red shawl stands beside a massive clay basin filled with grayish water. The smell is faintly metallic and sharp. She dips a hand into the water and motions for you to follow suit. Lime, she says. Not the fruit, the mineral. Today you're learning why the Aztecs weren't just good cooks, they were accidental biochemists. You've heard of nixtamalization by now. You've even participated, but now you see it up close in all its caustic, careful glory. The woman stirs the lime water with a long wooden paddle, and the maize kernels inside swirl like golden beads in fog. You reach in to scoop a handful, but she stops you with a raised eyebrow. Gloves. Not invented yet, but caution strongly advised. The lime water burns slightly on your fingertips. Not painfully, just insistently. You rinse them quickly, then return to watching. The process you learn is more than just softening corn. It unlocks niacin, strengthens the dough, improves the flavor, and removes the husk with elegant efficiency. Without this step, the entire Aztec diet would have collapsed into nutritional disaster. But with it, civilizations rose and flourished. Historians still debate whether the knowledge of nixtamalization came through slow experimentation or divine inspiration, someone murmurs nearby, holding a basket of dried chilies. You're too busy gawking at the steaming pot to respond. The woman scoops the corn out, now visibly puffier and more golden than before, and pours it into a woven basket lined with reeds. The water is poured away carefully. You realize it's slightly caustic. You definitely don't want that splashing on your skin. Note taken. The husks peel off easily now. You rub a few kernels between your fingers. The skins flake away like wet tissue paper, revealing tender corn inside. You rinse them once, twice, and prepare to grind. Back to the metate, your old nemesis. But this time the corn is softer. The grind is smoother. You find a rhythm. Your hands remember what your mind forgets. Forward crush, pull back scrape. A paste forms quickly, silky and fragrant. You inhale the scent. It's sweet, earthy, and faintly smoky from the previous fire. The mesa today feels different, lighter, more elastic. You press a ball between your palms and flatten it into a small disc. It holds its shape. No cracks. You beam. The old woman nods once, then turns away. That's high praise in this world. As you clean your hands, someone brings over the next step, tlacoyos. These are thicker than tortillas, oval-shaped, stuffed with beans or cheese, or at least the Aztec version of it. You form the dough pinch in the filling and shape it carefully before laying it on the comal. The sizzle is satisfying. The smell is divine. The woman takes a pinch of lime powder and sprinkles it into another pot, this time full of beans. You raise an eyebrow. Lime in beans? She nods. For softening, she says. It speeds, the process breaks down the tough skins. You taste the beans later, they're smooth, creamy, with just a hint of mineral edge. Clever. And it's not just food. Lime water is used in making paint, in binding stucco, in treating leather. But in the kitchen, it's essential. Without it, the corn won't bind into dough. Without dough, there's no tortillas. Without tortillas, well, you'd better learn to enjoy raw cactus. Lunch is simple today. Tlacoyos with pumpkin seeds and a thin tomato chili sauce. You're allowed to eat first. That's new. You savor each bite, appreciating the chew of the masa, the heat of the chilies, the faint tang left by the lime. You're sitting under a low awning when the cook shows you something unexpected, a chunk of limestone. Just a rock. She grinds a bit of it into powder, adds it to a bowl of water, stirs and hands it to you. Watch, she says. You drop in a handful of dry corn. At first, nothing. Then the kernels swell, the water turns cloudy, and a faint steam rises. You suddenly understand the magic. The transformation is quiet, slow and profound, from rock to soup, from kernel to culture. Later, you're sent to fetch more limestone from a nearby pile. The pieces are irregular, heavy, and awkward to carry. You stumble once. Dust covers your hands. You cough. But when you return, the fire is ready, the pot is waiting, and another batch of maize is about to begin its journey. You've been here long enough to stop questioning the steps. Everything has purpose, even soaking corn in strange gray water, even grinding rocks to cook dinner. In the cool of the evening, as the sky darkens to violet, you sit beside a basket of drying kernels and realize that no civilization can survive without science. The Aztecs didn't have labs or white coats, but they had lime and fire and the persistence to figure it out. You reach into the basket and pick up a single golden kernel. You roll it between your fingers. It's small, simple, but you know now it holds the whole world. The heat arrives early today. It presses down on your shoulders the moment you step outside like an invisible cloak soaked in sweat. The fire in the kitchen hasn't even been lit yet, but your skin is already sticky. You hear laughter from across the courtyard and the unmistakable sound of something sizzling. Chilies. You freeze, because today you're running the chili gauntlet. A wide stone platter is laid out under a reed awning, and on it, spread out like a rainbow of pain, are dozens of chili peppers. Red, orange, green, nearly black. Some are tiny and wrinkled like evil raisins. Others are long, glossy, and disturbingly confident. You're handed a basket and told to sort them. By size, no, by heat level, definitely not. By dryness. You pick up a few, press them gently. The dried ones crackle in your palm like thin paper. The fresher ones are firm, heavy, and slightly oily. Then comes roasting. The comal is already hot. A clay pan sits directly over the coals. You place a few chilies on it, watching them blister, darken, curl. The smoke hits your face like a slap made of pepper gas. You cough once, then again. Someone hands you a damp cloth to cover your mouth. You pretend it helps. Everyone else seems fine. A child runs by with a stick of roasted chilies in his mouth like it's candy. A woman casually tastes the salsa she's making. Nods, adds another handful of chopped pecans. You stare at the mortar in your hands. Inside are chilies, salt, garlic, and a little roasted tomato. You begin to pound. This is not gentle work. It's violent, cathartic, a kind of therapy where the goal is both flavor and domination. Your eyes water, not from emotion, at least not at first, just pure capsaicin, the oils cling to your skin. One wrong move and you'll regret touching your face for the rest of the week. You've heard stories. And the scent. Oh, the scent. It's glorious and terrifying. Smoky sweet vegetal and somehow sharp like the smell of anger simmering in a clay pot. Historians still debate whether chilies were primarily a flavoring or a preservative in Aztec cuisine, someone says over your shoulder. You don't respond. You're too busy regretting your life choices. You taste the salsa. Immediate regret. It starts with a pleasant warmth, and then, without warning, it grabs the back of your throat and refuses to let go. You sputter. The others laugh, not cruelly, just knowingly. You've been initiated. But it's not just about heat. You begin to notice subtleties. The roasted pasilla has a deep raisin-like sweetness. The chipotle smolders like a log left in last night's fire. The guajillo is tangy, almost citrusy. Each one brings its own story. You try a dish called tlatanile, a thick, smoky sauce made from chilies, pumpkin seeds, and a touch of cacao. It coats your tongue in layers spiced nut smoke earth. It's not just food, it's an experience. The cook shows you how to dry chilies by threading them together and hanging them in long ropes from the rafters. They look like garlands made of danger. You thread your own, pricking your finger in the process. You don't cry. Not this time. Later, you're assigned to help make chilmol, a deep black chili sauce made with burnt tortillas, garlic spices, and ash. Yes, ash again. It's stirred slowly over low heat until it thickens to the consistency of lava. You taste it cautiously. It's rich dark with a bitterness that flirts with complexity. You learn the hard way not to rub your eyes. There's even a chili-based drink chilatl made with toasted maize cacao and chili powder. It's earthy, mildly spicy, and surprisingly refreshing when cold. You sip it while fanning your face, eyes still red from the smoke. In the late afternoon, you're offered a challenge raw chili. Just one slice. Just to try. You consider it. Your mouth still hasn't forgiven you for the salsa, but peer pressure is real. You nod. You chew. Mistake. The heat arrives slowly. Then it sprints. Then it detonates. Your ears buzz. Your scalp tingles. Your nose runs. You panic briefly. Someone hands you a corn cake. You inhale it in 3 bites. Relief comes in waves. A child gives you a high five. You've passed. Dinner is simple beans tortillas, a salsa that looks innocent but probably isn't, and slices of cactus with chili lime salt. You chew carefully. Every bite is a gamble. But you're learning. The Aztecs didn't just cook with chili, they built a flavor system around it. There's no bland, only shades of fire. Even their medicines, rituals, and punishments used chilies. One punishment for misbehaving children was to be forced to inhale chili smoke. You suddenly understand why that worked. As the sun sets, you sit near the fire, still feeling the lingering burn on your tongue, and realize something strange. You want more. The next morning, you don't wake up in the kitchen. You're roused before dawn and handed a straw hat and a wooden basket. There's a boat waiting by the canal, and a man with arms like tree trunks gestures for you to climb in. You obey, unsure whether this is an errand or an abduction. Turns out you're going to the farms, but these are no ordinary farms. These are chinampas, the legendary floating gardens of the Aztecs. Long, narrow strips of fertile land built up from the lake bed, they stretch across the shimmering waters like green rafts drifting in formation. The boat glides silently between them. Mist curls off the surface, and the only sounds are the gentle splash of the pole and the occasional bird overhead. You step onto one of the chinampas, and the earth shifts slightly under your weight. Not much, but just enough to remind you that you're standing on something man-made floating above a drowned world. The soil is dark, rich, and damp. Everything here is alive. You're told your job is to gather dinner, so you begin. Squash blossoms flutter in the breeze like yellow butterflies. You pick them carefully, mindful not to tear the delicate petals. Nearby, amaranth grows in tall stalks, its purple heads nodding heavily. The man shows you how to cut it low and bundle it tight. Further down the row, chili plants sparkle with dew and menace. You avoid them for now. Then there's the protein section. You were warned, but it still catches you off guard. Frogs. Dozens of them nestled between reeds or sunning themselves on the muddy banks. Some leap into the water as you approach, leaving only ripples behind. Others freeze, watching you with bulging eyes full of judgment. You chase one half-heartedly and fall into the mud. Laughter echoes behind you. The frog escapes. You gain nothing but a bruised knee and a bruised ego. Historians still debate whether chinampas were exclusively for agriculture or also integrated aquaculture systems, someone says, helpfully tossing a net into the shallows. He pulls it back moments later, wriggling with small silver fish. You stare. That's dinner. No icebox, no filleting knives, just a gut hook and some smoke later. You carry your bounty back to the canoe. Your arms ache from the effort, but the view is distracting. The sun is rising now, lighting the lake in gold. The city looms in the distance, Tenochtitlan gleaming like a jewel set in water. You realize you're floating in the middle of one of the greatest engineering marvels of the pre-modern world, and your fingers still smell like frog. Back in the kitchen, you're greeted with the usual chorus of clapping tortillas and coughing chili vapors. You lay out your harvest proudly. The squash blossoms are admired. The amaranth is weighed. The fish are passed along without comment. Someone hands you a bowl of ahuatl, tiny white insect eggs, often called Aztec caviar. They were harvested from lake foam and considered a delicacy. You blink, you sniff, you try not to imagine where they came from. You mix them with amaranth and a bit of salt, then press the mixture into small cakes. They're pan-fried on a clay griddle until golden brown. You try one, crispy, nutty, oddly familiar. You reach for another. You're stopped. Share, someone says. Later you're handed a frog. Not live, thankfully. It's been cleaned and marinated in lime juice, garlic, and epazote. You dust it with ground pumpkin seeds and roast it slowly over coals. The smell is interesting. A little like chicken if chicken were nervous. You take a bite. It's fine. Chewy, slightly rubbery. The seasoning helps. You wash it down with a cold cup of atol. You're getting used to the texture by now, thick, warm, a little gritty. Comfort in a cup. Dinner is a spread of roasted fish, squash blossom tamales, fried amaranth cakes, and a salad made with nopal cactus and roasted corn. You sit cross-legged on the floor, feeling more like part of the team than an exotic guest. You're still clumsy, still slow, but you've stopped asking what everything is before eating it. That's progress. As dusk falls, someone sets a small bowl of chili lime crickets in front of you. You hesitate. You remember the frog. You grab a handful. Crunch. It's actually good. Salty, spicy, almost like sunflower seeds if sunflower seeds had legs. No one cheers, no one claps, but the bowl is passed to you again. You eat more. And as the kitchen settles into its smoky lull, you realize that this wasn't just a field trip. It was a glimpse into the roots of a world where farming and cooking weren't separate tasks. They were one long, beautiful, muddy process. Tomorrow you'll do it again. Maybe you'll catch that frog this time. This morning your body protests. Everything creaks. Your shoulders are sore from hauling baskets, your thighs from squatting in the fields, and your fingers, well, you lost feeling in those sometime around frog number 3 yesterday. But there's no time to complain. The kitchen is already alive, and today, you join the gym. Not the modern kind with treadmills and fluorescent lighting. No, this is the Aztec kitchen gym, an ancient unsupervised circuit workout disguised as meal prep. No waiver required, just stamina, stubbornness, and a high tolerance for pain. Your warm-up is hauling water. Clay vessels called cantaros line the courtyard. Each is filled at a communal well, then carried by hand or more accurately by back. You're given a sling of woven agave fiber looped around your forehead to balance the weight. It sounds awful because it is. You take 3 wobbly steps and nearly dump half the pot. A child passes you with twice the load and half your dignity. You get there eventually. Slower than the others, but upright. Barely. Next station, wood gathering. The cook hands you a dull obsidian blade and points toward a pile of split logs. Your job is to shave kindling. This sounds easy until you realize obsidian isn't a knife, it's a joke. Razor sharp but brittle. You get maybe 5 shavings in before it snaps. Someone sighs and hands you another. You bow your head. With the fire lit, the air grows hot. You're sweating before you even start cooking. But now it's time to grind. Again. The métier is unforgiving. The motion is familiar now, forward crush scrape, but your muscles are less enthusiastic. You feel it in your wrists, your elbows, your soul. You take breaks that aren't breaks, just long blinks. Then lifting the comal. It's a thick clay griddle wide enough to roast 6 tortillas at once. You're told to reposition it. You crouch. You lift. You almost collapse. The cook steadies you with one hand and raises an eyebrow. Careful, she says. You nod. Inside, you scream. You swap to kitchen stone carrying. Mortars, pestles, water jugs, each weighing more than your self-esteem after yesterday's cricket incident. You lug them from one end of the room to the other. Why, you're not sure. But it's part of the rhythm. Heat, grind, lift, sweat. You realize that being a cook in the Aztec world isn't passive. It's athletic, functional, endurance-based. Your ancestors didn't need CrossFit. They had corn. Historians still debate whether Aztec kitchen labor influenced their social structure, especially in gendered roles, someone says, as they lift a clay pot the size of a toddler with one arm. You pretend not to hear. You're busy trying to remember how to stand. A break comes with breakfast. Today it's pinole, a dry mix of ground toasted maize cacao and spices eaten with a splash of water. It's like drinking sandy chocolate. You try not to choke. The others eat with practiced ease. You manage to keep it down, a win, then cleaning. Not with soap, with ash and water. You scrub clay bowls with handfuls of fibrous cactus pads, the bristles scraping away food residue. Your hands sting. Your arms tremble. You ask yourself once again why you didn't just become a scribe. In the background, women prepare tlacoyos and tlaxcali with terrifying speed. One flips tortillas with her bare fingers over a fire that would make a welder sweat. You try to help and singe your fingertips immediately. They hand you a spatula. You accept it like a child handed a crayon. Your last task of the day is meat prep. No, not butchering. You're not trusted with that. Your job is to roast and rotate turning skewers of turkey, rabbit, or insect cakes over open coals. The heat is intense. Your eyebrows feel vulnerable. The meat sizzles, spits, and drips fat onto the embers below. The smell is divine. You're not allowed to taste it yet. Lunch is communal. Everyone eats in the shade. You're handed a bowl of stew thick with beans, amaranth, and chunks of soft roasted meat. The flavor is rich, layered, and warm. It tastes like smoke and spice and exhaustion. You eat every bite. Someone tosses you a roasted cactus paddle. You catch it. Barely. You're improving. As the sun begins to dip, the kitchen winds down. The tools are washed. The fire banked for the night. The griddles wiped clean with a damp rag and a prayer. You sit on the edge of the courtyard, muscles trembling, skin sticky, stomach full. You smell like sweat and ash and roasted squash. You are officially a kitchen warrior. You've joined the Aztec fitness program. No fees, no fancy gear, just rocks, heat, and corn. You lie back and stare at the sky. Tomorrow you'll do it again, and maybe, just maybe, you'll beat the old lady in the grinding race. This morning, you're greeted not with the familiar burn of firewood or the earthy scent of corn, but with something unexpected sweetness. Not the sugar rush kind, not candy bar sweet. No, this is subtle herbal floral. The cook lifts a pot lid and gestures for you to inhale. You lean in. Steam swirls around your face, carrying notes of honey tree sap and something faintly minty. Time to learn about sweetness, she says. You blink. But there's no sugar, you reply. She just smiles and walks away. Today you're entering the delicate world of Aztec sweeteners, an ancient chemistry set of flowers, bark sap, and bees. Before sugarcane ever reached these shores, the Aztecs had already developed a surprisingly diverse sweet pantry. Your first introduction, miel de abeja, bee honey, but not from the European honeybee. These bees are stingless, smaller, and frankly harder to spot. Their hives are kept in hollowed logs or pottery jars, and the honey they produce is thinner, more acidic, more complex. You taste a spoonful and are caught off guard. It's sour, almost fermented, but finishes with a delicate floral bloom. Next up, aguamiel, the sap of the maguey plant. You're taken to a patch of towering maguey, spiky, alien-looking plants that loom like frozen green flames. A man carves a hollow near the base of one with practiced care, and milky liquid begins to pool inside. He scoops some into a gourd and hands it to you. It's cloudy, slightly sweet, a little funky, like coconut water that's been to college and made some questionable choices. You sip. It's not bad. It's also not exactly refreshing, but it's nutritious and it ferments easily, which brings you to pulque. You're not allowed to drink it yet, not before breakfast, which is today piñol cakes, dry crumbling biscuits made from toasted cornmeal mixed with honey and amaranth. They look like grayish hockey pucks, but taste oddly delightful. Nutty, slightly sweet, and surprisingly filling. You're shown how to make syrup from chiltepin berries and the sap of the Sopolixochitl tree, whose name you will never pronounce correctly. This thick syrup is used sparingly, more like a glaze than a drizzle. It has a burnt caramel taste with a medicinal aftertaste that you're told is good for your blood. You nod. Always nod. Historians still debate how widespread natural sweeteners were in everyday Aztec diets versus ceremonial meals, someone says, as they drizzle a dark molasses-like paste over roasted squash. You taste it. Smoky. Tangy. Like sugar with a secret. Then come the fruit-based sweets. Mashed guava stewed, sapote mashed figs boiled into sticky paste. You help stir a pot of mashed tejocote fruit simmering with honey and ground cinnamon bark. The scent is incredible, like autumn in a clay bowl. Later, you're taught how to wrap mashed sweet potato mixed with cacao and honey into plantain leaves, then bury them in coals to bake. When unwrapped, the aroma is thick, earthy, and comforting. You take a bite. It's like a prehistoric brownie. You learn about tzictli, a natural chewing gum made from sapodilla tree resin. You try a piece. It's rubbery, slightly bitter, but after a few minutes of chewing it releases a mild sweetness. You catch yourself chewing absent-mindedly for half an hour while stirring beans. It's strangely meditative. You also learn restraint. Sweet things are rare here, precious, never overused. No frosted cupcakes, no breakfast cereal explosions. Here, sweetness balances other flavors, cooling the fire of chili, softening the bitterness of cacao, rounding the salt of roasted seeds. You're given a drink called Pozole de fruta, made with fermented maize, mashed fruit, and a hint of honey. It's served chilled in a clay cup thick enough to chew, sweet enough to smile. You down it too fast and hiccup. A boy mimics you. Everyone laughs. By afternoon, you're crafting edible flower syrups. The petals of marigold, hibiscus, and bougainvillea are steeped in warm honey, creating infusions that smell like ancient perfume and taste like late spring. You test a few drops on tamales. It works, surprisingly well. You help prepare a simple dessert for the evening meal, roasted squash glazed with maguey syrup and sprinkled with toasted amaranth. The cook lets you serve it yourself. Your hand shakes slightly as you carry the dish to the table. They eat quietly, no compliments, just chewing. Then the oldest woman nods once. That's all you get. That's all you need. That night, as the fire burns low and the smell of caramelized sap lingers in your clothes, you sit by the hearth and reflect. In a world without sugar, sweetness becomes precious, earned, balanced, respected, and somehow even sweeter. By now you think you've seen it all. You've ground corn until your wrists cracked, sweated over chili smoke, and swallowed frog with a straight face. But this morning the kitchen brings something new to the table, literally. It's hopping, and chirping, and very much still moving. A woven basket is placed in front of you full of plump, spiny-legged grasshoppers, chapulines. Some are alive, some are not. All are destined for the pan. You take a breath. You've done worse. Kind of. Today, says the cook with a grin, we eat bugs. Welcome to one of the Aztecs' best-kept protein secrets, edible insects. Low fat, high protein, culturally normal, nutritionally brilliant. Emotionally, you're not sure. Your first job sorting. The grasshoppers are separated by size and species. Some are tiny, no longer than a fingernail. Others look like they could operate machinery. You pick one up. It squirms. You yelp. The cook laughs and tosses 3 into her mouth. Crunch, like it's popcorn. The prep process is simple rinse salt roast. First you wash them in cool water to remove dirt and memories. Then you spread them on a clay griddle and sprinkle generously with salt, lime, and chili powder. They begin to sizzle, their little bodies twisting slightly as they crisp. The smell, not bad. Nutty, earthy, a little like toasted sunflower seeds. You try one. It crunches loudly in your mouth. The flavor is shockingly okay, tart from the lime, warm from the chili with a dry, toasty aftertaste. You wait for the revulsion, but it doesn't come. Not really, just a mental stutter. Then curiosity. You eat another, then a handful. Historians still debate the extent to which insects like ahuatl waterfly eggs were considered elite delicacies or common sustenance. Someone says walking by with a bowl of what looks like white couscous. Spoiler, it's not couscous. It's ahuatl Aztec caviar. Collected from lake foam, dried in the sun, then toasted and mixed with amaranth or fried into cakes. You help make a batch. The eggs smell faintly fishy but crisp up beautifully in a hot pan. The cakes are dense, nutty, and addictive. Next, escamoles ant larvae harvested from agave roots. These are the delicacy of delicacies. Harvesting them is dangerous. Ants bite hard and defend fiercely. You won't be collecting them today, thank the gods. Just cooking. The larvae look like swollen rice grains. You sauté them with garlic, epazote, and a touch of chili. They pop slightly in the pan, releasing a buttery scent. You taste cautiously, soft, rich, almost creamy, like scrambled eggs with a bit of attitude. You're handed a taco corn tortilla, roasted chapulines, a few drops of honey, and a slice of avocado. You bite in. The crunch and creaminess play well together. You nod. Another taco fried larvae, squash blossoms, and amaranth glaze. Better than any gourmet fusion plate you've ever tried. Insects here aren't gross. They're ingredients. They're food. They're normal. You help dry a batch of grasshoppers for storage. They're laid out in the sun on woven mats turned occasionally to avoid sogginess. Someone jokes that they're tanning. You laugh. You're relaxed now, maybe too relaxed. You forget to wash your hands before rubbing your eye. Big mistake. Chili dust. One eye goes into full panic mode. You stumble half blind into the water barrel. Someone hands you a damp cloth and an unsympathetic stare. Lesson: never touch your face in the Aztec kitchen. Dinner is quiet. You sit under a canopy of reeds, chewing thoughtfully on a cricket tamal with spicy squash sauce. It's not just edible, it's delicious. You think about the modern world where people flinch at anything with more than 4 legs. Here they flinch at wasting protein. There's wisdom in that. You sip atl slowly, watching the sun drop behind the chinampas. The insects have stopped chirping. The kitchen cools. You smile. You've eaten things you never imagined. And more importantly, you survived them. The morning hums with preparation. You smell roasting squash, hear tortillas slapping onto the comal, and see pots bubbling over coals. It's more than breakfast, it's an orchestra of routine. But today, you sense something different. There's a hush in the kitchen, a focus, an intensity. You notice the cook wiping her hands on her apron, smoothing her hair, adjusting the placement of clay bowls just so. Children are shooed outside. The older women speak in low voices. Something is happening. You lean over and ask. She smiles slightly. A banquet, she says. For the priests, a beat. Then, not for you. You nod. Of course. You've been here long enough to know your place, but you're allowed to help. And today that means learning about a different kind of Aztec cooking, one reserved for ceremony celebration, and sometimes sacrifice. You start with pozole, a rich stew made from nixtamalized corn herbs and meat. But this isn't the basic version you've had before. Today the corn is blue. The broth is simmered with avocado leaves, dried chilies, and something earthy that smells like roasted bark. It's layered, deep, haunting. You stir slowly, watching the colors darken, the steam rise, the flavors merge. Careful, someone warns. This one's sacred. You nod and stir more gently. Then comes the bread. Tamale, but made with sacred fillings, flowers, seeds, powdered cacao, and in one version a paste of ground bones and corn. You pause at that. Bones. The cook just raises an eyebrow. You don't ask. Next, the sauces. You grind chilies and pumpkin seeds into mole stir in a thickening paste of ahuatl and spike it with fermented cacao. The smell is rich, complex, slightly alarming. You taste it and feel your eyes water, not from heat, but from depth. This is not comfort food. This is food with purpose. Then you're handed a bundle of leaves tied with twine. Don't open it, she says. You carry it to the altar. You don't know what's inside. You're not supposed to. A priest arrives mid-morning, tall, silent, adorned in black feathers and shells. You're told not to speak to him. He kneels. The food is laid out carefully. Pozole in painted bowls. Tamale wrapped in sacred leaves. Cups of cacao frothed to perfection. The air thickens. He eats slowly, deliberately. Each bite is a ritual. Each sip is a prayer. The cook kneels nearby, eyes lowered. You stand at a respectful distance, clutching a basket of squash flowers. Historians still debate whether human sacrifice meals involved actual ritual consumption by priests or symbolic substitution. Someone whispers behind you. You say nothing. After the priest leaves, the kitchen breathes again. The tension dissolves. Someone makes a joke. A child runs through the door, giggling. You exhale. You're handed a bowl of leftover pozole. It's still warm. You eat in silence. It tastes like reverence. Later, you help clean the altar space. The bones, whether animal or symbolic, you still don't know. The ashes are swept, the pots washed, the sacred bundles repacked. You're told that food for the gods must be handled carefully, that even a misplaced tamal can be seen as disrespectful. You nod solemnly and wipe your hands clean before touching anything else. In the late afternoon, the cook shows you how to make tsoali, a ceremonial cake of amaranth and honey molded into the shape of deities during certain festivals. You press the mixture into a carved wooden mold and lift it free. A face stares back at you, serene, expressionless, ancient. You place it carefully on the offering plate. Later that night, you sit by the fire with a cup of chocolate, the ceremonial kind. Bitter, frothed, infused with chili and crushed flowers. You sip slowly. The kitchen is quiet now. The sacred work is done. And though you weren't part of the feast, you helped build it. You stirred the stew, shaped the tamales, ground the seeds, carried the bundles. You may not be a priest, but today you cooked like one. Today your hands smell like salt before you even leave bed. Someone spilled a basket of crystals near the fire pit last night, and it crackled and popped all through your dreams. This morning you find the culprit coarse white salt clinging to the cracks in the courtyard like dried snow. Salt. It seems simple. But today you learn it's everything. You start by licking your fingertip, pressing it to the granules and tasting. It's strong, clean, sharper than any table salt you've had before. A pinch transforms a bland bean soup into something you actually want seconds of. A handful in a pot draws out the flavors of squashed tomato and roasted chili like a magician's wand. But the Aztecs didn't mind salt. They harvested it. You're sent to the edge of the city where the lake bed lies cracked and pale under the sun. Shallow ponds have been dug into the ground, each no deeper than a teacup. The water in them sparkles, but not from fish, from minerals. This is where salt is born, A man shows you how it's done. Water is ladled into the pools early in the day, left to evaporate, and by evening a thin crust begins to form. He scrapes it carefully with a flat reed blade. You try and get mostly mud. He smirks. This salt is called tequesquite, a mineral salt found in the volcanic basin. It's not just sodium chloride. It's also rich in other minerals, giving it a rounded alkaline taste. It's used in cooking and medicine and dye making, even in making tortillas puff properly. Back at the kitchen, your newly harvested salt is added to a dough of ground amaranth and toasted corn. Just a pinch, but what a difference. The bitterness softens. The dough becomes bright, almost lively. Later, you help brine fish. A few handfuls of lake-caught silverfish are cleaned, then rubbed in salt and hung to dry. You do the rubbing. It's slimy work, and you're pretty sure one of the fish blinked at you, but you press on. Then comes preservation. Chilies are salted and sun-dried. So are tomatoes. Even cactus pads are cured in brine. Everything preserved for the months when the lake gives less, when the chinampas shrink back under cold skies. Salt isn't just seasoning, it's survival. You try a salted tamal mashed beans amaranth, a sliver of fish wrapped in a corn husk, and steamed until the scent fills the whole courtyard. You bite in and feel the difference instantly. The salt doesn't scream. It whispers, pulls the flavor forward without stealing the scene. Historians still debate how far the Aztec salt trade reached, and whether inland villages had equal access to high-quality mineral salt, someone mutters as they stir a pot of beans. You nod. You've already seen salt traded in bundles weighed like treasure. In the early evening, a woman unwraps a sacred bundle near the hearth. Inside is a small bowl of pinkish powder salt of the earth, she calls it. It's been blessed, offered, stored in a sealed gourd, only used on special days. She sprinkles it over roasted squash filled with honeyed nuts and cacao nibs. You get to taste one bite. It's like eating a memory. That night, as you help scrub the clay griddles, your fingers sting slightly. Tiny cuts from salt crystals from grinding from splitting kindling. You don't mind. You earned those. The last task of the day is lighting a small incense burner with crushed salt and copal resin. The smoke curls up, sweet and sharp. A blessing. A thank you. You sit near the fire sipping salted cacao and think about how something so small, just a grain, can hold so much. Salt is a preservative, a purifier, a seasoning, a symbol. And here it's everything. The air smells like smoke again, not the kind from the usual firewood or roasted chilies. This is heavier, thicker. It wraps around you like a scratchy blanket clinging to your clothes, your hair, your tongue. It's night in the Aztec kitchen. And tonight you're cooking in the dark. The fire is lower than usual, glowing gently under the comal. Clay lanterns flicker from corners, their small flames casting long shadows across the walls. You squint, trying to make out the bowls laid out for you, mesa beans, herbs, and strips of something that could be squash, or could be snake. Hard to tell by lamplight. This is Tempatiani late-night cooking for feasts, for travelers, for offerings to ancestors. Your task tonight is to prepare tlacoyos, thick oval-shaped mesa patties stuffed with beans, cheese, or edible greens. You shape the dough slowly by feel more than sight, gently pressing the filling inside, pinching the ends, flattening it just enough to cook evenly. You place the first one on the griddle. It sizzles. You watch the edges darken, turn golden, curl slightly at the corners. You flip it. Too soon. The filling spills. You scrape it off and try again. The second one holds. You nod to yourself, squinting through smoke. You're getting better at this. Nearby, a woman toasts seeds, pumpkin, amaranth, chia in a shallow clay pan. The sound is gentle, like rain on a roof. She adds a pinch of salt, a splash of pulque, and grinds them into a paste. You sneak a taste. It's rich, nutty, slightly tangy. She smirks. Not for you, she says. But she doesn't take the bowl away. Over the fire, beans bubble slowly in a large ceramic pot stirred with a wooden paddle carved from mesquite. Someone adds epazote leaves, sharp herbal bitter, in the best way. The scent rises, fills the courtyard, settles in your bones. You realize you're not tired. There's something about cooking at night that awakens a different part of you. It's quieter, slower, more intentional. You're not racing against the sun. You're working with memory, touch, smell. No one speaks much. This isn't a meal for chatter. It's a kind of prayer. Every flip of a tortilla, every stir of a pot, every sprinkle of salt feels like an offering. You step outside briefly to catch your breath. The sky is ink black, spattered with stars. The city is mostly asleep. But here in this kitchen, time stretches. No clocks, no pressure. Just the steady work of keeping people fed. A man walks in carrying a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside, roasted corn, salted squash seeds, and a cooked lizard tail. He unwraps it carefully, arranges it on a clay plate, and places it beside a flickering candle. "For the ancestors," he says. You nod. He adds a bowl of cacao frothed until foam rises like mist. It smells like firewood and earth. He pours a few drops onto the ground. The rest he offers to you. You sip. It's warm, bitter, perfect. Historians still debate whether night meals held symbolic significance beyond mere sustenance. Someone whispers from the shadows. You can't see their face. You don't care. The cook pulls a heavy lid from a low clay pot buried beneath coals. Inside, tamales slow-steamed since dusk. She unwraps one. The steam escapes in a fragrant puff. You help serve. One for each person, one left untouched. That one is for the gods. You eat in silence. Tlacoyos with bean and pumpkin seed paste. Roasted cactus paddles with chili and lime. A tamal stuffed with sweet potato and wrapped in sacred leaves. It tastes like night, smoky, soft, unhurried. Later you help smother the fire with ash. Not to kill it, just to quiet it. It will still be warm in the morning. You leave a small ember glowing under a clay dome, the heart of the kitchen. You wash your hands in a bowl of herbal water, lemony sharp, and dry them on your tunic. You're exhausted, but not drained. You crawl into your bedroll, still smelling like mesa and wood smoke. And in the darkness, your stomach full, your hands worn, you think, I cooked in the night. And the night cooked something in me too. You wake up to the sound of bubbling water and the unmistakable scent of something meaty, but not in the usual roasted bird over coals kind of way. This is deeper, richer, a little wilder. You sit up slowly, heart already whispering one word: stew. Today is Pozole day. And your role, you're stirring the pot. Not metaphorically, literally. The cazuela, a massive clay pot wide as a wagon wheel, is perched over a sunken fire pit surrounded by stones to keep the heat steady. The broth inside is thick and pale, roiling gently as it simmers. Floating in it, hominy corn cracked open from its lime soak, looking like bloated pearls. And chunks of, well, meat. You ask what kind. You are met with silence, which is somehow worse than an answer. You stir carefully with a paddle the length of your arm. The broth resists at first, then begins to roll, coaxed into a gentle spiral. The scent that rises is hypnotic, sweet, corn-charred herbs, roasted bones. Whatever's in there, it's working. Someone adds a bundle of avocado leaves and epazote tied with twine. The bundle steeps like tea, bleeding flavor into the stew. Then in go roasted chilies, dark, wrinkled, oily. You stir again. The broth darkens slightly, thickens, smells like memory. And then comes the meat. A clay bowl is placed beside the pot, covered in a white cloth. You lift the edge. A heartbeat passes. You stare. You ask again. Rabbit, someone says. You nod. You're relieved. Then they add, and possibly, not just rabbit. You freeze. Historians still debate whether the most sacred pozole included human flesh during rituals. Someone whispers almost to themselves, though Spanish records likely exaggerated these claims. You choose to believe it was exaggeration. You must. Still, you stir a little more carefully now. The stew continues for hours. You add more herbs, a squeeze of lime, a scoop of roasted pumpkin seeds ground into paste. Someone toasts a few tortillas, rips them by hand, and tosses them in, thickening, enriching. When it's finally done, the pot is pulled off the fire and allowed to rest. You're handed a ladle. You fill bowls one by one. The stew is pale gold, flecked with red, spotted with herbs and softened corn. It smells like someone put all of autumn into a clay pot and set it over a fire made of history. You sit to eat. The meat is tender. Whatever it is, it melts like butter. The broth is complex, sweet, sour, spicy, and something else you can't describe. It lingers. You sip slowly. It warms your chest, then your face, then your thoughts. You're quiet for a while. You notice everyone else is too. There's a reverence to this stew, like it's more than just food, like it's an inheritance. Later, you're shown how to preserve pozole for future meals. The stew is reduced until thick, then spread onto woven leaves and dried in the sun. It flakes like parchment, can be rehydrated days or weeks later. The ancestors were nothing if not practical. You help package it into tight rolls, wrap them with twine, and store them in clay jars. There's a sense of satisfaction in preparing for hunger you haven't met yet. And then comes something unexpected. You're given a bowl of white pozole, a special version made without chili, just corned meat, garlic, and herbs. It's served cold. Strange, but good, clean, like a memory rinsed in rain. In the late afternoon, you sit near the fire, sipping a thinner broth made from the last of the stew. The sun dips low. A wind picks up, rustling the reeds. A woman hums an old song. No words, just a tune that sounds like home and endings. The pot is cleaned. The bowls are stacked. The fire dims. You lie back against a woven mat, eyes heavy. And for the first time in days, you feel full, not just in your belly, but in your bones. You're woken before the sun again. But this time, no one is grinding corn. No smoke hangs heavy in the air. There's just a pot of leftover beans, a cold tortilla, and a breeze that smells faintly of dust. Today you're having breakfast the Aztec way, which is to say, you're not really having breakfast, not by modern standards. There's no fruit salad, no pancakes, no smoothie bowls drizzled with organic this or that. The Aztecs didn't sit down to feast in the morning. They got up, ate just enough to keep moving, and saved the heavy stuff for later. Your host hands you a tamal cold and stiff from yesterday. It's filled with mashed beans and wrapped in a corn husk that's gone slightly leathery overnight. You unwrap it, chew slowly. It's not unpleasant, just quiet, functional, the taste of routine. You wash it down with a cup of lukewarm atoll water, ground corn, a touch of salt. No sugar, no cinnamon, just corn in a cup, thick enough to coat your throat, thin enough to drink while walking. And that's the point. Aztec breakfasts weren't about indulgence. They were about fuel. You're handed a bundle of roasted squash seeds and a piece of dried cactus paddle rubbed with chili and lime. Portable, durable, shelf-stable. You chew slowly. The seeds are nutty and salty. The cactus is tangy, chewy, and slightly slimy in a way you're learning to appreciate. Next, you're taught how to prepare tlaxcali for the morning rush. Thin tortillas made from day-old masa pressed quickly and tossed onto the griddle. Each cooks in seconds, puffing gently if the dough is right. You fold one around a smear of bean paste and eat it standing up. Everyone else is already moving on to their tasks, grinding, fetching, stoking fires. No one sits. Historians still debate how standardized the first meal of the day was among various Aztec classes, someone mutters as they stack tortillas with machine-like precision. You doubt the poorest households had even this. You ask what warriors ate before marching to battle. The answer, more atoll. Sometimes mixed with cacao, sometimes with chili. Thick, fermented, meant to last in the belly for hours. You try a warrior's breakfast, a dense cake of pinole toasted cornmeal, mixed with amaranth and a single drop of maguey syrup. It's dry, crumbly. You chew for what feels like a full moon cycle. It sticks in your throat like ambition, but it fills you. Later you learn about Pozole, a festival breakfast made from popped amaranth honey and squash seeds. It's eaten in pieces, Shared, sacred, sweet but not overly so. You help shape some into small discs and leave them to dry in the sun. The rest of the morning passes in slow rhythm. You sweep the courtyard, stoke the fire, stir the beans. At one point you're handed a bowl of roasted insects. Snack, they say. You don't question it anymore. Lunch arrives quietly. A stew made from morning leftovers, yesterday's beans, half a roasted squash, wild greens, and a cup of salted pulque. It simmers while you sit near the fire warming your hands. You realize you're not hungry. Not really. The breakfast wasn't satisfying by modern standards. It didn't thrill your taste buds or flood you with sugar, but it did its job. You have energy, focus, calm. Aztec breakfast wasn't a meal. It was a tool. As the sun climbs high, you sip water from a gourd and nibble a tamal with fresh avocado slices. Simple, cold, good. You watch the others move through their routines, efficient, grounded, silent. No one complains about the menu. No one wonders where the eggs are. They eat what they have. They move on. You lie back against a clay wall, belly warm, limbs loose. And you think maybe this is enough. Smoke rises slowly from the courtyard fire, curling into lazy spirals beneath the dawn sky. But the kitchen is quiet, too quiet. No clapping tortillas, no humming cooks, no scolding glances when you forget to stir the beans. Today is not a cooking day. Today is a day of ritual. You're handed a small bundle wrapped in corn husk. Inside a few kernels of blue maize, a pinch of cacao, crushed flowers, and a dried chili. You recognize each item, but not like this. This isn't food. This is offering. You follow the others toward the household shrine. It's a low, rounded altar made of stone tucked into a corner of the courtyard. Above it, feathers flutter from a carved figure, Chico-Macotl goddess of sustenance, corn, and nourishment. Her face is weathered but serene. Everyone kneels. You do too. One by one, they place their bundles before the idol, bow their heads, whisper something you can't quite hear. You're told to offer yours with both hands. You do, and for a moment, the world feels still. The rest of the day moves with ceremony. You prepare tsoali again, not as a snack, but as a sacred food. Popped amaranth honey-dried fruit and a dash of maguey syrup are mixed and molded into the shape of the goddess herself. Not too big, not too small. You help shape the figure carefully, pressing the mixture into a wooden mold and smoothing the edges with warm water. Later, it will be eaten not for hunger, but for remembrance. Then incense. You're shown how to grind copal, a hard, amber-like resin, into powder. It smells like pine and pepper in forgotten places. Mixed with ash and herbs, it becomes a grainy paste rolled into small balls and set to smolder. The smoke that rises is thick and sweet, clinging to your skin and hair. It fills the air like a second sky. Historians still debate whether food offerings to the gods were consumed by priests or symbolically left to decompose someone. Notes standing quietly beside the shrine. Today, it doesn't matter. You help roast corn on the comal, turning the kernels until they blister and pop. They're mixed with ground chili and epazote, then placed in a bowl and carried to a nearby tree, where a small stone figure sits cradled in its roots. That one's for the rain, someone explains. And this, they add, handing you a pot of cacao, is for memory. The cacao is bitter-spiced with wild vanilla and chili, and frothed into a thick foam with a carved wooden whisk. You ladle it into small cups, each placed carefully on the altar. You pour a few drops on the earth. The rest is sipped in silence. The taste is dark grounding, like something older than hunger. As the sun rises high, you help prepare tlalpopoca smoked tortillas layered with squash and roasted chilies, not for lunch, for ghosts. They're left on the edge of the courtyard beside a bowl of water and a candle, just in case the ancestors are hungry. You nod. There's a kind of reverence today that you didn't expect. Food isn't fuel. It isn't celebration. It isn't even survival. It's connection. Between earth and sky, between living and dead, between hand and flame. In the afternoon, you help build a reed mat laid with maize ears arranged in a spiral. At the center, a bowl of honey and a single tamal filled with nothing, just masa. To feed the silence, they say. You feel something tighten in your chest. At dusk, the Tsoali figure is broken and shared. Small pieces are passed around. You eat yours slowly, letting the honey stick to your tongue. No one speaks. The fire crackles. The copal still burns. You sit with your back to a stone wall, watching the sky darken. Tonight you don't cook. You don't taste for spice. You don't flip tortillas. Tonight you remember. And in the hush between bowls and blessings, you realize to the Aztecs food was never just food. It was memory. It was breath. It was prayer you could hold in your hands. It's late in the season now. The air is thicker. The sun hangs longer in the sky, but somehow it feels colder. The kitchen smells different too, not fresh and green, but dry. Earthy, a little musty. Today you learn what it means to cook when nothing's growing. This is the rainy season's revenge. You wake to find a basket of shriveled beans, cracked corn gourd with mold on one edge, and a bowl of chilies that look like they've seen better centuries. The cook gives you a look. Make it work, she says. Welcome to the pantry raid Aztec style. You start with the corn. The kernels are dry and stubborn, refusing to soften even after an overnight soak. You try grinding them anyway. The metat groans. You add more water. It turns into gritty sludge. You keep grinding. The beans are old, tough-skinned. You boil them for hours. Add ash, add salt, stir until your arms ache. Still, they barely soften. You try to mash them. They fight back. Then there's the gourd. You carve away the mold. The rest is firm enough. Sweet. You slice it, roast it over coals, sprinkle with salt-crushed amaranth and a bit of aged honey. The outside chars. The inside steams. It works. Barely. Next comes creativity. You make tortillas from scratch using ground squash seeds and masa crumbs salvaged from yesterday. They're coarse, misshapen, burn too fast on the comal. Still they hold. You find a jar of preserved greens. The smell is sour. You taste it tangy salty, not unpleasant. You chop them finely, mix with chili paste, and wrap it all in a tamal. It's not pretty, but it fills the belly, and that's the point. In times of scarcity, Aztec kitchens became labs. People cooked with what they had, which wasn't much. You make a thick paste from roasted cornmeal and pulque lees, the sediment left behind after fermentation. It's bitter, but it binds. You roll it into balls, bake it over coals, and eat it dipped in chili salt paste. It's not delicious, but it's not bad. Historians still debate how widespread famine foods were across social classes or whether these recipes were passed down through necessity or ritual, someone murmurs while gnawing on a dried nopal strip. You just chew and nod. You learn to boil bark, scrape moss from rocks, toast cactus spines after singeing off their needles. You're handed a bowl of stewed flowers, aged marigolds, and dried squash blossoms rehydrated in pulque and seasoned with epazote. You eat. You survive. For dessert, someone finds a few sticks of dried maguey sap. You chew one. It's like eating smoky caramel pulled from a tomb. You smile. Just a little. The kitchen feels different today. Not desperate, not sad. Just quiet. Resilient. No one complains. Everyone moves slower, but they move. You clean the griddles with cactus paddles. Rinse pots with bitter herbs. Save every crumb. Dinner is modest, a weak atoll, a slice of roasted gourd, and a tamal filled with yesterday's leftovers mashed into something new. You eat on the floor. The fire is low. No one says much, but your stomach is warm. And in this season, that's a kind of victory. Later, you help patch a hole in the roof with woven leaves. The rain is coming soon. You feel it in the air, in your knees, in your breath. You look at the pantry, half empty, full of cracked clay jars and hopeful bundles of dried herbs. You know now that flavor isn't the goal. Survival is. And survival, it turns out, tastes like perseverance. It's market day. You can hear the buzz from the courtyard before the sun even crests the lake. Voices calling, feet stomping, barter chants echoing down stone streets like musical arguments. You're handed a woven basket and told to follow the others. You tie your tunic grip the edge of your bag and step into the pulse of the tianguis. Welcome to the Aztec marketplace. You pass through rows of reed roof stalls where clay jars glisten with chili oil beans are stacked in pyramids, and cobs of multicolored corn hang like jewelry. Smoke from roasting fish winds around you. Somewhere someone is arguing loudly about the weight of a squash. Your first lesson money is optional. Aztecs use barter, or cacao beans, or cotton cloaks. It depends on who you're talking to, what you're offering, and how good you are at keeping a straight face while pretending your dried cactus is worth 3 bowls of honey. You try your luck. You offer 2 avocados and a roasted grasshopper cake for a handful of wild tomatoes. The seller laughs. You throw in a chili. He nods. Deal. Transaction complete. Next stop, salt stall. Fine pale salt stacked in tight cloth bundles. It's heavy, worth more than anything else on your list. You trade a clay cup, a gourd of pulque, and 2 tortillas. The vendor eyes you skeptically, then shrugs. You get the salt. Historians still debate the degree to which these barter economies relied on fixed value systems versus local negotiations, someone says while weighing amaranth in the next stall. You don't respond. You're focused on the man holding a string of dried fish. He looks hungry. You look determined. Eventually you end up with a bundle of dried squash, 2 exocanosal sour cactus fruit, a folded cloth soaked in maguey syrup, a pinch of annatto paste, and a bruised but fragrant guava. You're satisfied. Then you're pulled toward the cooking area of the market. Open fires clay griddles big pots of boiling stew. Women flip tortillas with their fingers. Children snack on toasted corn. A man grates cacao into a frothing pot and hands you a cup. You sip. Warm. Bitter. Spicy. You nod. Nearby, a woman sells tamales the size of your face. You trade a dried chili and a few amaranth seeds for one stuffed with mushrooms and pumpkin seeds. You eat it leaning against a stone pillar while watching a vendor perform a balancing act with live frogs. It's chaotic and somehow comforting. The market isn't just a place to buy, it's a living, breathing organism. It's where news spreads, where alliances are formed, where meals begin. You spot your host bartering for herbs. Her hands move fast, her voice steady. She glances at your basket and gives a rare nod of approval. You've done well. Later, you carry your haul back to the kitchen. Your arms ache. The sun is higher now and your clothes stick to your skin. But there's pride in the weight. You helped fill the pantry. You unload your items onto the stone counter. The cook eyes the guava, slices it, and places a piece in your mouth before saying a word. It's perfect. That evening, you help cook a market stew, mushrooms, herbs, xoconosal squash, and a dash of annatto for color. The smell is sour, earthy, mysterious. You serve it with thick tortillas and salt. No one says thank you. They just eat, which is better. And as you sit by the fire, chewing on your 3rd tortilla, you think the kitchen may be the heart of the home. But the market, that's its bloodstream. The courtyard is empty when you wake. No pounding corn, no clatter of clay, no smoke from the fire. Then you hear it, distant drumming, steady, slow, like a heartbeat approaching through the ground. You follow the sound through narrow streets, past reed-covered doorways and flower garlands strung like whispers. Today you are not cooking for family. Today you are sneaking a glimpse at the emperor's table. It begins with a procession. Servants carry trays the size of doorways stacked high with bowls covered in dyed cloth. The air is thick with the scent of roasted turkey, squash, cacao herbs you've never tasted. You slip through the crowd, sticking close to your host. No one stops you. Not yet. The palace courtyard opens wide before you, stone floors swept clean, banners flapping in the breeze. You step quietly to the edge and stare. There are 300 dishes. Maybe more, laid out in long rows, steaming, gleaming, whispering stories of rivers, mountains, jungles. This is the private banquet of the Huey Tlatoani Montezuma himself. You won't see him, but you'll see what he eats. A man fans a bowl of roasted duck glazed with fermented fruit. Another tends to a clay pot filled with chilmole, a black chili sauce so rich it looks like obsidian. You see tamales wrapped not just in husks, but in embroidered cloth. They're filled with sweet corn, cactus fruit, wild mushrooms. Even gold dust, or so they say. You lean closer to a platter of roasted rabbits served with amaranth glaze. It smells divine. You are absolutely not allowed to touch it. Servants walk among the rows barefoot, refilling bowls of pulque, stirring pots of stew, fluffing tortillas. Each dish is tasted first by a food taster, yes, even the cacao. Historians still debate the accuracy of colonial accounts describing Montezuma's meals, particularly the claim of chocolate being served in golden goblets someone mutters beside you. You don't know who. You're too busy watching a man pour foamed cacao from a height of 2 feet into a cup rimmed with crushed flowers. You wish you could taste it. Your host whispers that no dish is ever repeated in a week. Each day's menu is designed to reflect not just variety, but balance between cold and hot, dry and wet, strong and mild. You see that balance in action: fire-roasted fish next to chilled fruit paste, salty ant eggs paired with sweet honey tamales, sour zocanasal stew beside spiced duck. Even the way they're arranged speaks of harmony. You watch as Montezuma's table, separate shaded, raised slightly above the rest, is set with care. No metal utensils. Just fine obsidian blades, polished bone picks, and clay vessels so thin they look like they might hum if touched. Then the emperor arrives. Or rather, his food does. He eats alone, or at least apart. His guards stand silently nearby. The music slows. He selects one dish, then another. He drinks the cacao, wipes his mouth with cotton cloth, says nothing. The food does the speaking. You are not allowed any closer. But a young servant girl takes pity. She brings you a bowl, leftovers technically, but from a plate that was never touched. Inside, roasted squash and chili honey glaze with a dusting of crushed cacao nibs and amaranth. You take one bite and immediately understand. This isn't cooking, it's orchestration. Later, back in your little kitchen, everything seems smaller. The pots, the griddles, even the fire. But your host claps you on the shoulder and says he has 300 dishes. You have one, but yours is eaten with joy. You smile. Because in this empire, whether you cook for a god king or for your neighbor, the food still matters. The sun barely peeks over the rooftops when you hear the shouting. It's sharp, fast, not the usual market chatter or the kitchen's early banter. It's tension. You step into the courtyard and find your host staring at a broken clay bowl on the ground, the contents of vibrant red chili paste smeared across the stone like a crime scene. There's a boy on his knees, wide-eyed, silent, and beside him, a woman holding an empty pouch. The smell of chili theft is unmistakable. Today you won't be cooking. Today you're learning what happens when food becomes law. He was caught red-handed, literally. Stained fingers, a mouth that still burns. The pouch belonged to the cook. The chili paste was reserved for a festival meal. It was valuable, sacred, stolen. He doesn't deny it. The household gathers in silence. No one raises their voice. But the tension hangs heavy like humidity before a storm. Your host steps forward, speaks briefly to the others, and gestures for the boy to follow. You follow too. You walk through narrow streets toward a stone building that feels colder. It's not a palace. It's not a temple. It's something older, rougher, more serious. An Aztec Calpuli justice house. You've heard of these places. Part town hall, part court, part moral compass. Local disputes settled by elders. Punishments rendered not for vengeance, but for balance. Inside, the elders listen. The boy stands small in the middle of the room, holding the empty pouch like an apology carved from cloth. He's asked to explain. He doesn't cry. He speaks simply. He was hungry. No breakfast. No lunch. Just the smell of roasting chilies all morning. He couldn't resist. The elders nod slowly. Historians still debate the consistency of punishment for food theft in the Aztec legal system. especially when survival was involved. Someone says softly, near the door. You glance but don't see who. Maybe the voice came from the wall itself. The verdict is swift. No whipping, no dungeon, no branding, just service. For 3 days, the boy will carry water, scrub floors, gather firewood, and grind corn for the very household he stole from. He bows, accepts. The pouch is returned to the cook, not refilled but mended. You walk back in silence. At the kitchen, the boy begins immediately. He lifts water jars with trembling arms, grits his teeth as he kneels before the matat. You offer to help. He shakes his head. I took it, he says. I'll earn it. The cook softens, slightly. She gives him a bowl of beans, nothing fancy, no spice, but food still warm. He eats quickly, quietly. Later you watch him carefully clean the clay bowls, stacking them with precision. He folds cloths, sweeps ash. He doesn't speak again that day, but he works harder than anyone. At dinner he's allowed to join, just once. 1 tamal, 1 tortilla, 1 cup of atole. Nothing extravagant, but it's given freely. The cook doesn't smile, but she places the food gently in front of him. That's enough. That night you ask your host how often this kind of thing happens. She shrugs. Often enough. You press. Don't you get angry, she thinks. We all get hungry, she says. But if you steal what's sacred, you cook until it's not. You remember the chili paste, its color, its scent, how it was meant for a celebration, and how it ended up as a lesson. Not all food in the Aztec world was for nourishment. Some fed justice. The sky is bruised with clouds. Not the gentle drifting kind, but thick, low things that press down on the earth. The air tastes metallic. The lake is quiet. Even the birds have stopped calling. Something's wrong. And then you see it, the maize twisted, wilted, yellowing before its time. Today, you are not learning a recipe. Today, you are learning what hunger looks like. It begins slowly. First, the corn stops growing. Then the beans don't flower. The squash vines shrivel at the base. The market has fewer colors, fewer voices, more bartering, more begging. The tamales get smaller. The stews get thinner. You see your host quietly cut a single tortilla into quarters and lay them out like they're whole. She doesn't say anything. No one does. The fire still burns in the kitchen. But today it boils nothing. You help prepare hunger food the recipes passed down not in pride, but in necessity. Ground cactus paddles mixed with old pinole. Stone-hard tortillas toasted twice to make them edible again. A tea made from roasted avocado pits and dried chili skins. It fills the belly, but barely. You're sent to gather wild greens from the edge of the lake. Quelites, romeritos, verdolaga, whatever you can find. The soil is hard. The wind is colder. You step over dried footprints, cracked earth, empty snail shells. Back in the kitchen, you stir a watery soup made from dried pumpkin peel, and one single tzocanostle split 4 ways. The flavor is there. Barely. It tastes like memory. Someone brings in a basket of insects, crickets, fly larvae, even ants. You roast them with a pinch of salt. Not because you like them, because there's nothing else. The stew bubbles quietly. The others sit close to the fire, not speaking, just watching the pot like it might blink. Historians still debate how often widespread famine struck the Valley of Mexico before Spanish contact, or how ritual and foodways adapted to long-term scarcity. Someone says in a low voice, almost apologetically. You just keep stirring. Lunch is served. 1 bowl per person, no seconds. You eat it slowly, chewing each spoonful like it contains a secret. You're not full, but you're not dizzy. That's good enough. In the afternoon, you help make tlacoyo duro, a hard corn cake baked until brittle, meant to last weeks. You pack them into bundles with dried chili powder and cactus strips. Emergency food. Maybe for the next market, maybe for the next moon. Then comes the bread of desperation. Toctli pan rabbit bread. But there's no rabbit. Just mashed maize husks, old beans, and a pinch of crushed flowers for color. It's bitter, but warm. Dinner is nothing. Not nothing exactly. A weak tea, a shared piece of squash, a tamal filled with air and hope. You chew slowly, pretending. Your host speaks softly as she pours the tea. Hunger humbles everyone, she says, even the gods. Outside you hear drumming, a rain ceremony, dancers moving through the streets, shells rattling, feet stomping, voices rising in rhythm, not joy, desperation. You step outside and join them. Not because you believe the gods are watching, but because dancing distracts from the ache in your stomach. You sleep that night with your hands on your belly, not because it's full, but because it's still yours. And tomorrow you'll wake up and cook again. Even if there's nothing left to cook, the sky is pale pink when you wake thin clouds drifting lazily across the horizon, birds swooping low over the water. The air is cooler, softer, but beneath it all, there's a tension, a stillness in the kitchen that doesn't feel like rest. Today you cook the last meal. Not your last, but the last of something bigger. Word has traveled slowly, carried on foot, and whispered across market stalls they've come. Pale men with thunder in their hands and steel in their mouths. You've heard rumors for days, some laughable, some terrifying. But this morning, no one is laughing. And yet the cooking begins. Your host doesn't speak much. She lays out the clay bowls, fills them with what she has: maize, squash, dried fish beans, herbs. You help without asking. There's no ceremony, no festival, just duty, a kind of quiet resistance. The final feast of the empire is being prepared, not in a palace, in a kitchen like this. You shape the mesa carefully, hands steady. The tortillas must be perfect, soft, puffed even. You fill tamales with zacanasal and crushed pumpkin seeds. Wrap them in corn husk, tie them tight. You grind cacao into a bitter paste and mix it with honey chili and roasted corn to make chilmole, the dark, thick sauce that smells like smoke and memory. Historians still debate what dishes were actually served in the final days before the fall of Tenochtitlan, someone mutters as they stir the pot of beans. But you're not listening anymore. You're watching the faces around you. Old, young, wrinkled, laugh-lined. Eyes that have seen drought and rain, birth and loss. Hands that have built temples, held babies, crushed corn. You carry dishes outside to the edge of the lake. The light dances across the water. The chinampas sway gently, still green, still floating. In the distance you see smoke. Not cooking smoke. Different. Closer every day. The meal is laid out on reed mats. Everyone sits. They eat slowly. No one rushes. No one hoards. Tamales, squash, amaranth cakes, pulque. You chew carefully, committing every taste to memory. The bitter of the cacao, the tang of the fruit, the salt clinging to roasted beans. It's all familiar and suddenly precious. No one mentions what's coming, but everyone knows. You clean up after, quietly. You help bury the unused mesa, return the salt to its pot, grind the last of the chili into paste, and seal it in waxed cloth. You press leaves into water to make tea. You stir. You wait. You light a small fire as night falls, and in its flickering glow you realize this wasn't just a meal. It was a farewell to this place, this rhythm, this kitchen, this empire. And as the wind shifts and the drums fade, you sit beside the hearth with a bowl of bean soup still warm and whisper a silent blessing to the stone, the fire, and the food. Whatever comes tomorrow. You cook today, like an Aztec, like it mattered. Now, slow everything down. Let the fire die. Let the smoke trail gently into the sky. You're still sitting there, cross-legged fingers dusted with cornmeal, the scent of roasted squash fading into the fabric of your tunic. You close your eyes, not from sleep, just to hold the memory a little longer. You've walked through kitchens no one remembers. You've stirred pots for gods who no longer speak. You've tasted bitterness, sweetness, survival. You've burned your fingers. You've shared your bowl. And through it all, there was rhythm, the grind of the metate, the puff of tortillas, the slow bloom of flavor in a clay pot kissed by fire. Even now you hear it, in your breath, in your pulse. The Aztecs are gone, they say, but their food it still breathes, in tamales made by grandmothers with quiet hands, in cups of bitter chocolate passed across generations, in every humble tortilla folded around memory. You lie down now, the stone floor beneath you warm from the last embers. A clay cup sits nearby, a single sip of atole left cooling in the dark. The fire is almost out. The stars lean in. And somewhere not far from the edge of sleep, you know you could cook like an Aztec after all. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but with reverence. And that's enough. So close your eyes. Let the smoke drift and rest. End of script. Good night.